2 years ago, Isaiah Thomas was the league's third leading scorer, on track for a huge payday, but a lingering hip injury likely ended his time in Boston, limited him to just 32 games last year between Cleveland and the Lakers. 2 trades and a veterans minimum deal later, he returns to the floor tonight as a Denver Nugget. And what are we to expect from him down the stretch for a Nuggets team that just doesn't appear to need what he provides right now?
Well, I mean, I don't think you can ever have too many resources in this league, Matt. And I know theoretically they don't need him. But if you got an opportunity to get a guy who was in the MVP conversation a couple years ago, coming off your bench at a bargain basement price if you're the Nuggets, this is nothing but a positive to me. As long as he doesn't come back and interrupt what's going on with Monty Morris and some of your young guys you're developing, doesn't, disrupt the rotation at all, this is a net positive to me for the Nuggets. I think we're going to expect him to come back and play with that same swashbuckling style that he's always played with. I think we should probably expect for the Nuggets to be a little more careful with Isaiah Thomas. No need to overexert him or to have him try and do anything beyond what he's capable of physically right now, because you don't need him. You don't have a need for a guy to come in and rescue in any way, shape, or form. So this is about him reestablishing himself in the league physically and really on the hoof. We need to see if his body can take the pounding and the rigors of, live NBA action the way it could before he was injured.
We just don't know how he'll respond to the hip surgery long term. A lot of people believe he'll never be the same player he used to be, and we just don't know at this point. But you mentioned Monty Morris, who was great the other night. 17 points, 7 assists without a turnover. Last I checked, he was leading the league in assist to turnover ratio. He is the point guard that they really don't have in their starting lineup. They don't necessarily need Isaiah Thomas to do what Monte Morris is doing right now, but it's interesting to hear his thoughts on his role. Quote, "My job is not to fit in, it's to stand out." And for a guy who has to be aggressive to be effective, that's got to be at least a little bit of a concern for the Nuggets in that rotation.
Well, it's the same thing he talked about both in Cleveland and LA. That's the mentality that has propelled Isaiah Thomas to the NBA. He can't turn his back on what's gotten him here, Matt. He's got to be the same aggressive, no-nonsense, undersized performer, because let's face it, more often than not, he's going to be the smallest guy on the floor every single night out there. So he's got to go out there with a boulder on his shoulder to make sure he continues to prove to himself and everybody else watching, and certainly to everybody he's competing against, that he belongs. So if that's what it takes for him to get motivated and to get energized to go out there and play, so be it. What you have to do if you're Mike Malone is make sure that you engage with a guy you've got history with Isaiah Thomas in the days early in his career in Sacramento. So you go in with the very clear understanding as Mike Malone of what you need from Isaiah Thomas on a nightly basis. Some nights he may get minutes, and it might be his time to go out there and light it up and do what he's used to doing. Other nights, those minutes might not be there, and he's got to be good with that. He's got to be comfortable with the fact that Mike Malone's going to use him as he sees fit for the greater good and not for the good of Isaiah Thomas.
At this point, given the uncertainty about what he has after this long layoff, what he has physically, he could be a Lou Williams off the bench, light him up kind of guy. And if he's hot, you leave him in there and see what happens. And if he's not, you don't play him. But we just don't know, again, what he'll be able to do when he takes the floor. It's fascinating as they take on the Sacramento Kings, who occupy the 8th spot in the Western Conference playoff race.